Previously on Avatar.
And now for my game trailer of this show, it's obviously...
Open the gates.
You thought I was going to say Final Fantasy? It looks cool. I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy. I might play it. It looks fun. I got to play the first one.
Get down here, Merc.
God damn, he's hot. I mean,
He's gay! Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Fun fact, I've never played a Final Fantasy game before. I don't play a lot of Japanese games in general, so I was a little hesitant going into this one. Was I going to like it? Was it going to be too weird for me? Was I going to even be able to understand and decipher the story in this game? But my fears were quickly just murdered in broad daylight as soon as I started playing this game and I got to the Scorpion boss fight. Here I was, playing as a guy who, if he was real, Dream SMP stance would go crazy for this motherfucker, using a sword that is way too big for him, to help the leader of an eco-terrorist organization who has a gun for an arm fight a giant robot scorpion that is trying to stop us from blowing up a reactor that sucks the literal lifeblood out of the planet we're on, all while listening to one of the greatest video game soundtracks I've ever heard in my life. That moment when I hit that first limit break, it finally clicked in my brain that I wasn't going to like this game. I was going to fucking love it. And then when I met Tifa, I knew this was the greatest game ever made.
She's so fine, she done pissing me off!
Beautiful.
I gotta go.
How are you that fine?
Okay, but also on a real note for a quick hot second, every character in this game is so goddamn hot, it's kind of unnerving. Starter man, get a grip, you're being way too horny. Okay, so what? So what? This is what the game developers intended. If they didn't want me to feel this type of way while playing their game, they wouldn't have designed the characters this perfectly down to the goddamn atoms in their bodies. Even some of the goddamn side characters would be main characters in other games. That's how they're designed. And with all of the protagonists of this game being this goddamn sexy, I was like, okay, the only way this fits is if the main antagonist of the game is just the most ugly monstrosity of a person I've ever seen.
Oh no, he's hot!
Yeah, so all the characters in this game are like 10s, but you know what's crazy? Despite all of these pixel perfect people, the hottest thing in this game, the thing that got me the horniest by far, was the goddamn combat. Now, when it comes to third-person action games, I'm a bit of a connoisseur. I'm a bit of a whore for these games. It also means I've played a lot. I've seen a lot of what the genre and the gameplay style has to offer. So when I say Final Fantasy VII blew me out of the goddamn water, then you should turn off the video and go play it right now. Actually, don't do that. I need the views, please. At least, like, leave the video on the background while you play. Please. Please, it's hard out here, man. Alright, let me collect myself. It is time to talk about this exquisite combat system. Another fun fact for you on this fine day. The original Final Fantasy VII was turn-based. Yuck. I find most turn-based systems that are used in RPGs to be just fucking boring. Like, why do I have to wait for them to go? I want to go all the time. But I can't, so my character has to look up in sheer terror with no ability to protect themselves as the enemy is about to hit them with some sort of monster combo. And even when it really is your turn, it's still just kind of like because you're not actually you kind of just click a button and they do the thing. But the best thing about these systems is that they make you think. There's strategy involved, and I like not being treated like a little piss baby in my video games. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake, it takes third-person action combat that never ceases. It always makes it feel like your turn. It gives you that illusion. But in reality, these third-person systems, like the basic attacks, they fucking blow. But they still serve a purpose. Not only do they look swag as fuck, but you're building up your ATB meter. It's kind of like a turn timer. Once that fills up, then you can do all the cool shit. You can cast a spell, you can hit them with the bravery ability and nothing else. So the third-person action, while not doing a whole lot, it keeps me engaged in the fight as it's going. It keeps my stupid little goblin gamer brain satisfied until it's time to whip out the big shit. And since you can control up to 3 characters in a fight, they all have ATB meters that are charging. So that makes it even feel more turn-based because you have multiple characters that get to do something after short periods of time. And when it's time to actually figure out what I'm going to do once that meter charges, I go from feral demon to refined gentleman. Now, when the game slows down, the strategy is nothing crazy. Some enemies are weak to certain types of spells. There are lots of different types of spells, actually. Lots of different abilities based on which character you are, and certain ones are better in certain situations. It's nothing crazy, but at least I had to think about what I was doing instead of just reacting to a bunch of attacks attacks. I was actually planning ahead, using the different abilities one after another in logical orders, which is then exemplified even more with the stagger meter, which when filled, enemies take more damage, so then you want to know when is the right time to try to fill it when they're pressured, and when's the time to play defensively and back off a little bit. If I had to find any complaints with the game's combat, it's easily that some of the enemies are just a bitch to fight. They either have a lot of health, they got a lot of moves that are just plain annoying. And this kind of goes into the other gripe. There are ways to counter these, so it's not huge, but there are a lot of attacks in this game that will just stop you from playing. You'll be put to sleep for at least 10 seconds. You'll get knocked by some sort of attack so far out of the fight, you gotta run all the way back, and then you get hit by another one. It just stuck out to me this time because the combat is so fun when you're actually in the action doing shit. So the few times when the game stops you from doing anything, it tends to stand out a little more. And it hurts even worse because when you're actually able to do shit 99.9% of the time, it's incredible. But what really sends this combat system over the edge for me, I appreciate the somewhat basic strategy elements mixed in with the battle system that makes you actively participate, but it's the animations, the vibe, and the look of everything. It's like you're playing a cutscene that you get to control fully. The animation work here is some of the best I've ever seen. Even like the basic nothing attacks look just so cool. They add to that feeling that, yes, I'm currently being a badass and doing something, even when you might really not be. It strikes a great balance between cinematic feel, actual gameplay, and a good decent amount of challenge depending on who you're fighting. And to make it feel even more cinematic and otherworldly, the soundtrack for this game, this motherfucker right here. Not gonna butcher his name, he was in his bag. You can hear the main battle theme in the background already in this video, and oh my god, games would be lucky to have this kind of default battle theme as their theme for the final boss of their game. There's so many boss fights and just fights in general, set piece moments that are exemplified even further when this motherfucker's going crazy on a goddamn violin or whatever the fuck he's playing in the background. It's just, words can't do it justice. It has to be experienced. And I mentioned the Robo Scorpion boss fight earlier, and I mentioned boss fights maybe a couple times before. Boss fights here, some of the wackiest, most impressive I've played in a video game. I've showed footage of some. They don't really do it justice either. This is something that has to be experienced. Just like going into them, expect like what I was talking about the basic gameplay, just like the normal fights, and then dial that up to like cream in my pants levels. That hurt to say, I'm sorry. I told you this video would be horny. Stutter, man, you're sucking this game's dick. So what, it deserves it. But hey, if you, the viewer, want me to say something bad about this game, I'll go ahead and do it. I'm not afraid. Now, the worst part of this game, and saying worst is not the best descriptor actually, because it's not bad. It's like average at the least. The open world areas with side quests, they're kind of boring. These are cool places in the slums to explore. It's just the actual content in these chapters that aren't story related is just kind of boring. A lot of it's some fetch quests or just stuff that's just not interesting. It's a good change up in pace from like the linear action levels. I just wish the stuff you're doing is more interesting. It also sucks because they give pretty good rewards, so sometimes you feel like you should do it, even though you really don't feel like it. It's like going to work. Actually, this is probably still better than going to work because A, it's still fun, it's still Final Fantasy VII Remake, and also I don't have Tifa at my job.
What is wrong with you?
This game also has a bit of a padding issue. Not all of the linear levels are bangers. Some of it is like, why is this going on for so long? Nobody's ever said that to me. And there's a lot of these, if you see these fucking arrows on the ground where you gotta like shimmy between a wall or like walk across a pipe, I'm sure like in the original PS4 version these were used to mask loading times, but I'm playing this on a PS5 with the supposedly improved edition that does not get rid of these. They wouldn't be nearly as bad, but it's like the developers designed them so they would want you to like not play the game anymore and go do something with your life. You could go outside, play a whole game of pickup basketball to 21, come back inside, have a nice meal, sit down, watch an episode of a show you like, then file your taxes, get ready for bed, brush your teeth, the works, and you would just now be getting back to the action. Besides that, there are a couple other puzzle sections where it's like, why is just the basic shit taking so long to perform? It's just sometimes the game feels too indulgent, too drawn out. Final Fantasy VII Remake is about 20 to 25% of the original game. I went back and played part of the original because I wanted to see what the differences were. I wanted to see how it felt. I made a little benchmark for myself. How long would it take to get to the church level? Because that was a pretty monumental moment in the remake. In the original, it took me about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half, but that's because I did kind of rush a little bit. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. In the remake, doing all the side content leading up to that level took me about 7 hours.
What the fuck?
But this is another trick pulled by this batshit crazy game, because they added a lot of stuff, they have drawn a lot of stuff out, but for the most part, it's fucking excellent. But wait, hold on, before we get into this, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have not talked about the RPG mechanics in this action RPG game. So we're gonna put this on a little cliffhanger right now for the story elements. You're gonna have to wait probably 2 minutes and some change before you can figure out what I think about the story. Or I guess you could just skip ahead in the video if you're lame or a loser or something. So the RPG mechanics, it basically comes down to each character has different weapons you can equip them with, each one corresponding to a different build essentially, and that each weapon has certain upgrade trees that are unlocked as you play the game and use those weapons. Sounds fairly simple and straightforward, right? That's where Square Enix comes in, flops it on the table. I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about materia. With the weapon system, essentially you're creating the most basic version of that build, and then you equip your weapons, your gear with materia, which are essentially, well, just about anything. They could be a spell, it could be a passive buff, it could be a brand new ability, a brand new move, and it works so wonderfully. You take two fairly basic systems, kind of similar to the combat actually now that I think about it, and they work in synergy to create something that is simple yet makes you think strategically about what your next move is. Holy shit, this is just the combat. I just enjoy variety in my games, and this has some of the greatest variety I've seen in an RPG, because you take your basic mold and then you put fucking fire spells and deadly dodge materia, HP up, that's a must. To create builds that you have fun with but also must work strategically with one another, so certain characters can fulfill certain roles, because this is a role-playing game, in the party. Now the game does try to nudge you in the right direction, this character should be doing this. But I do like that it kind of allows you to somewhat ignore that. For the most part, Cloud as a magic build, it doesn't seem like the way to go usually, but the game says fuck it, we might let you do it anyway. Same thing kind of with Barret. Barret's supposed to be a ranged support tank kind of guy. That's how I played him. That's how I liked him to be. But later on in the game, you can equip him with melee weapons. I don't know why you would do that, but the option is there. That's the thing. It's we don't know why they would do this, but let's at least let them try it out and see if they can make something of it. Okay, now it's time to talk about the story. I told you it only take about 2 minutes, and if you skip to this part of the video, I hope you stub your toe later today.
Squidward.
Now I think the main plot thread of this game, being an eco-terrorist fighting an evil corporation, I don't think is that interesting. Oh man, he hates the plot, man. I didn't say that. I guess I just did, but I really didn't say that. I was trying to mimic you, dumbass. I'm sorry, I take it back. Please subscribe. But this is one of the few occasions where I think it's a fantastic thing that the main plot thread throughout, the main motivator for the characters, besides Cloud, but we'll get to that in a second, isn't really that important. Because I think this game's greatest strength, plot-wise, is being an introduction to the characters in the world before they start hitting you with the crazy anime bullshit in the next few games. And that's why I think having Cloud as the protagonist and viewing the story through his lens for most of it is absolutely genius, because he does not give a shit. Barret will be over here talking about Mako energy. We gotta take out Shinra, they're killing the planet, and Cloud is just looking at him. He could not care less. But if he was Cloud, we gotta destroy this Mako generator and Tifa will be there, then instantly Cloud and I, we're on the same mind, so we're sign me up, please, please.
Stop it. Get some help.
And eventually it gets to that point in the game where Barret will be Cloud, will you help me with this? Player, will you help me with this? And both me and Cloud, we will be Barret, we will help you with this, because you are important to us. We love you, Barret. And that's why the main plot thread doesn't have to be important. It's a good enough device to get the characters to interact with one another and get to the interesting setup shit for the actual plot instead of what we're doing right now. And that's why I said this game is more of an introduction, because it's a lot of setup for the actual plot that happens at the end of the story, and it's very character driven, so that once the important shit starts happening, you already care about who you're with. Because as much as I've been acting like a horny weirdo for Tifa in this video, the best part of her character is her personality. It's how she's written. She's interesting. She has a great dynamic with Cloud and the rest of the party. When I met Barret in that first mission, I was this guy's way too over the top. I don't really like him a whole lot. He's kind of a dickhead to me. By the end of the game, I would blow up a village for this man. And when I first met Aerith, I thought she was kind of annoying. And then the more you spend time with her, the more you realize that the Tifa versus Aerith debate is called a debate for a reason. And honestly, let's talk about that for a second. You remember when I said this game was an action RPG? Forget all that. This game is a waifu simulator. Literally, the only meaningful choices you have on the story is to choose which woman you want Cloud to be with. And unironically, this was one of the hardest choices I've had to make in any video game ever. It's really sad to say that, but it's true. Because they are both so incredibly well written, have such great dynamics with Cloud, and they're such nice people in the game. I don't want their virtual feelings hurt. I know they're just ones and zeros, but they're real to me, damn it.
Your feelings for her are not real.
Your eyes.
You're real to me!
However, unlike you, the story is just not perfect. Sometimes there's just a bit too much setup, like I want a little bit more plot, and some of it, I feel like I need a PhD to understand what's going on. Especially towards the end. The end, it was like a bunch of cool shit going on, a lot of important stuff, and I just had no clue what they were trying to tell me. Like, I understand what direction they're going in, like that was clear. It's a bit controversial, I kinda like the idea. I stand by their decision. But then once they delve into what's going on, I'm like, what the hell is happening right now? Can we slow down for 2 seconds and just explain some shit? I remember after I beat the game, I was like, damn, that was pretty cool, but like, what did I just witness? It didn't really make sense, and I looked up a YouTube video, and he explained everything. He explained it very well, but at the same time, I was like, how the hell did you figure this out based on what the game showed us? Like, there's no way you could have done that. Dude started bringing up like multiverses and like time travel and shit, and I was like, when did the game ever talk about this? So maybe he's lying, I don't know, he definitely could be. So I've talked about setup a lot, and I did say there's too much in this game, because I think there is, to a certain extent. I like most of it, but some of it just doesn't hit for me. The most egregious offender was like, showing a character that's gonna show up in the next game, and that showed up in the original, way too early. Like one of the most important cutscenes in the game, this happens kind of twice actually. You're locked in and then it'll cut to something, you're like, who the hell is this? At least that's what I was saying, because I never played the game before. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy, you're probably like, oh my god, it's that guy, it's that person. But then I also feel like you would see these cutscenes and be like, why the hell are they in the game right now? They show up with no context, they have no scenes afterwards. The one at the end is especially confusing because I think it's actually important. It's just, we have no clue who this is if you haven't played the original. And the other one I'm thinking of is just like, man, this cutscene is cool as hell, who is that? Okay, I guess we're back to Cloud. And then they are never heard from again, until the next game probably. One other complaint I have is the cutscenes can be overly long sometimes. I don't mind long cutscenes normally, but as I said before, this game can get overindulgent. They tend to drag some of them out, and sometimes they do it in moments where they don't really need to be at all. Like nothing is going on anyway, why is the cutscene this long? And it's just sometimes you wish that the game would kind of get on with it and get you back to the gameplay, because you've gone long enough without killing something. I know I said earlier this game has incredible dialogue. It doesn't always hit though. Some of it can be really cringy, like I had like visible pain on my face listening to it. And there was a lot of like that anime like noise. I'll just have to play it for you to describe it. This happens like 20 times per cutscene, just constant moaning in my ear. It's not even that big of a complaint, it's more of a nitpick, it just happens so much, it's like, can we please get serious and stop this for once? And just one final, I was just surprised how much I actually enjoyed the plot here, despite me not being used to Japanese style of storytelling. And I have heard how wacky some of these games can be, and this one is certainly wacky. It's just like, I was kind of vibing with it. I enjoyed my time for most of it. The highs of the story hit so much better than the lows. That is a worthwhile adventure, filled with some of the best characters in gaming right now and of all time. So it is with great honor that I rank this game. Nothing, because, I don't know, I'm kind of done with scores. I don't want to fit in. I want to be different, you know? But also, I just don't think they're as helpful as they used to be. After playing this through PS Plus, I think for $70, I would pay that to play this game probably, if I hadn't played it already. I don't say that about a lot of games, but the fun to content ratio, it's not like a Ubisoft game where it's like 100 hours, but like 90 of those are just boring, busy work nonsense. This is a 35-hour game where I'd say 5 hours aren't as good as the other 30, but they're still good by comparison to other games. And I think there is quite a bit of replay value here, with hard mode being locked until you finish the game for the first time, and then you go back, face harder enemies without using any items either. And the $70 version includes the DLC intermission, which I didn't play because my PS Plus subscription ran out. But I think that adds an extra 5 to 6 hours of gameplay on top of that. And I don't do this a lot. Like I was playing this game and I beat it, and then I went back and started playing it again like halfway through because I was having so much fun with it and I didn't want it to end the first time. So already I got like 50 hours worth, but even one playthrough plus the DLC I think is worth the $70, especially if you play it again later on. But if you're hesitant like I was going into it, just play it on PS Plus. And this game still might have a demo. I don't really know. I'm not going to do the research to tell you because I'm lazy. And if this game is on sale for like 40 or 50 bucks, I think that's a real bargain for this game. And that's like a price I would say I would be most comfortable with. But if I did pay 70, I would not be mad in the slightest. And if you played the game before and you just want to hear some random dude on the internet's thoughts, some random loser like me, I appreciate you for watching. Let me know what you thought of the game in the comments, because I like discussions and shit. If you didn't like it, let me know. I respect most people's opinions, unless they're stupid. But I don't think yours is going to be stupid. You're a smart person. And it's okay to not like the things that other people say that they like, that, you know, the popular opinion. That's fine. With that being said, if you played this game and you're not excited for the sequel,
You should kill yourself now.